All right, everybody, thank you for joining me again right here on the Florentino Rebuilding Company YouTube channel, my channel. We're going to take an interesting trip today. I think this is part 10 of our walking tour of the historic parts of downtown Long Beach. And today we're going to be covering two Hollywood shooting sites. One from our very famous and dearly loved series of emergency, the firefighter paramedic series back from the early 70s. The emergency. They actually shot a bunch of scenes here in Long Beach, but I'm going to shoot the scene today. It's a site where I drive by and walk by pretty much many times throughout the day. And we're also going to be shooting a scene, if not on this tape, we'll do its own episode following this, of California's dearly loved Hugh Hauser and his California Gold series. We're going to cover one of the sites he did so I can show you how it looks today. Emergency TV show was from back in the early 70s, ran through the 70s. I think it ran 10 years. And the episode we're going to be shooting has this location in the background. But why I'm including it is because this used to be the city hall for downtown Long Beach. When they shot this episode of Emergency, which was back in 1972, this city hall was being built. It was almost nearly completed. It was a very tall structure, concrete, the type of concrete where it's mostly concrete, unfinished concrete, and then they'll put like floors in between. And I think that type of construction is called, or I've seen it referred to as brutalism. If I'm right or wrong, let me know down below in the comments section. But you could see it in the background of the emergency episode we're going to cover when it was under construction. And here where I'm shooting in the year 2025, it's gone. They tore it down here about 5 years ago. So why I'm including them in this video episode is kind of like the hands and the numbers on a clock, on a watch. We're going to use it as reference of time. And how is it possible that nearly 50 years have gone by from when they shot that TV episode to when I'm shooting where it was shot at? 50 years, half a century have gone by. I was a little kid when that came out. I'm 59 years old now. So just to give you guys that perspective of that city hall structure has been demolished and is now gone and replaced by the buildings. That's the new city hall locations off in the distance there. So we'll be right back from the location of where they shot that episode of Emergency back in 1972. Okay, we're back. Thank you for joining me again. So now this scene, you've seen it before. It looks familiar in my previous videos. We're at the corner of Pine and 3rd Street in downtown Long Beach at the old Farmers Merchants Bank building. And this location, believe it or not, we drive by or walk by it all the time, year after year after year. This was actually a shooting location for not only one episode of the TV show Emergency, but actually two. And let me explain that a little bit. Here a couple years ago when I was looking into the old TV show Emergency and its history, I read where the production company and the studios would lease or rent a property to shoot an episode of a fire emergency or something, and they'd pay the owners for their use. But in order to make their dollars stretch out more or get more for the bang for the buck, they would actually try to shoot two different scenes on the same location at the same time by positioning their cameras, let's say for example from this angle, and for the second episode, which would be totally different, from this angle. And you would see that as a kid. You'd say, oh, I recognize that building, or I recognize that refinery in the background. It didn't make sense until now as an adult. I did my research, and in order to kind of get a bang for their buck, they would shoot or try to shoot two different episodes at the same time on one location for the same cost, which kind of makes sense. And our location here on 3rd and Pine at the Farmers Merchants Bank building is no exception. You guys will remember, and I wrote this down for you guys, back in 1972. I got notes in my back pocket. Give me a second. So back in October 7th of 1972, this was season 2, episode 4 of the TV show Emergency. The name of the episode was called Virus. And that was shot on this part of the building. We're going to talk about that in the second part of this video. We're going to talk about the first one, which I couldn't find as I left the office. But at the same time, they had paid for the use of the building and had cameras up there and everywhere installed. They went ahead and filmed another episode where there was a sniper perched up on top of that roof among that scaffolding for that sign up there. And he was shooting down to the paramedics and Engine 51 as they were parked right where you see that yellow sign there. So on TV, the angles, the sniper perch was up there and he was shooting down to Engine 51, and you could hear Captain Stanley get on the radio and said, "We're being shot at, we're moving to a different location," and Engine 51 pulled away from that location to a different part of the building. I don't remember the particulars to that particular episode other than that, but we're going to go show you the actual camera angle from where that was shot at. Give me 1 second to set up. Okay, so we're standing facing north on Pine Avenue, and Engine 51 would have came in right where that car came in, right here. Actually, this sidewalk was not as wide as it is today. It would have came in right here, and it parked right here, right in front of the old Woolworths department store building, which is now a gym. But it pulled in and parked right there. And as unknowingly started to get shot at by our sniper, who was perched right up there. And if you see that sign way up there, you see all the scaffolding, the legs and stuff. That's where they actually filmed this particular episode, where they took advantage of to film 2 episodes in one location at the same time. So the sniper was up there amongst that scaffolding that holds the signs up, all those beams and stuff. And so you get a little closer. And he was shooting down. To, of course, Engine 51, who had just pulled into this location. And then you hear Captain Stanley get on the radio and say, headquarters, we're being shot at, we're moving to a different location. The engine pulled away and probably went somewhere else down the street. That was all part of the shooting process. Of course, they didn't cover that, but let's check it out from a different angle. So now we're across the street facing southbound on Pine, and that would have been the old, you could still tell by its construction, that would have been the old Woolworths department store, and that's where Engine 51 pulled in, like kind of right there, as he was getting shot at by our sniper who was perched up there. Now that was one of the episodes that they filmed at the same time, since they had paid for the use of the top of the building, and the cost of having the production crews and all the trucks and equipment come down, and they took advantage of it. It's pretty smart when you think about it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go on the south side of the building and film where they actually, now this episode I do remember, and I was able to research it on YouTube before I came out here to shoot this. The name of that episode was called Virus. It's season 2, episode 4, where paramedics Johnny Gage and Roy DeSoto go out to a call. It's some young lady. She's got a pet monkey. The monkey plays with Johnny, I think, and he bites him or scratches him or something. Well, Johnny winds up getting some sort of monkey virus, and it gets passed around in that particular episode to everybody. But it was important for this particular shot because, well, when we get there, we'll explain it better. Incidentally, this is the front of our Farmers Merchants Bank building. Back on the corner of 3rd Street and Pine. Okay, so that was the first episode they shot, and I don't have too much more information on that. It was shown either in a different season or maybe later on in that particular season, but they did a lot of that to a lot of the scenes throughout that show. And now that you kind of know that, now that I know that, when I go back and watch episodes, I start to look for, especially since I'm from Southern California, I start to look for telltale signs that that particular scene was used more than once. Anyways, getting back, so our sharpshooter was over here on this side. Now for season 2, episode 4, the virus, the one where Johnny Gage gets infected with the virus and he starts feeling dizzy, kind of like almost passing out as the episode goes on. That was filmed over here, but in particular on that rooftop and down along the face of this particular building, because Johnny Gage, or our real life actor in this case, Randy Mantooth, did some rappelling on ropes and stuff, and he would do a lot of that on his own as his own stuntman on the show. But this particular case, he did it here. He passed out, and if you remember the episode where his helmet flies off below and lands in the parking lot below, well, we're going to shoot that right now. We're going to go kind of behind this building. That's where we're going right now. Stay with me. Okay, so here we are. So in this particular episode, there was some sort of painting crew on a scaffolding, kind of like in there somewhere, hanging off the wall of the building. They had a medical emergency. Squad 51 came out, Engine 51 came out also. And they lowered Johnny onto the scaffolding using ropes. Some of it was shot in the backlot studio, the close-ups and stuff, but most of it was shot out here. By this time, Johnny started feeling queasy and he passes out, and I think he falls off the scaffolding and dangles from a rope. As his body stops, his helmet flops off his head and like a leaf just goes down, down, down and hits the pavement right there, right along the building, right there. And as a kid, literally right there where you see those white parking stripes, back then the lower portion of the wall, this lower portion here was painted a dark green, and the top was painted kind of like what you see here. Today it's all painted one color. But if you go back in the episode, you'll see the helmet flop around, and something that you guys are it's gonna ring true with some of you guys, some of you viewers, is that sometimes in our youth there's a certain sound that we never forget it throughout our lifetime. I'm 59 years old now, and I've never forgotten the sound of that plastic, that hard, thick plastic flopping down and hitting the asphalt there and kind of flopping around. That sound sticks to my head to this day. And when I went back and watched the reruns here in the last couple of months on my laptop as I'm trying to figure out how to shoot this episode, that sound was exactly how I hear it in my head to this day. Now, once Johnny Gage had his episode, I think Captain Stanley, I think Chet and Roy were up on the roof along with a couple of the painters. So they decided to pull up Johnny by the ropes. They recognized that he had an episode and they had to get him up quickly. Rather than setting up another rappelling rope to lower somebody down, they just said, let's pull him up. And I remember, I think the captain said, call up Mike and Lopez from the engine to come up and help with muscle power as far as pulling up Johnny, if I remember correctly. And this would be the area where Johnny's helmet crashed and flopped, probably right about there, around about 50 years ago, guys. 50 years ago. I'm currently standing on a parking structure that was not here at the time of the shooting. That allows me to give you this cool shot. So the scaffolding kind of was like about right here. Johnny got lowered onto it. He had his fainting episode. His body just hung either off the edge or off the rope, I don't remember. When his body, the momentum stopped, his helmet kept going, whether on purpose or by accident, but the camera stayed on it as it fluttered all the way down and danced around right at the foot of that building, right next to that white car you see today. So that's it for today's episode. We'll go ahead and post this sometime today. We're gonna post another one. I'm gonna continue walking about 10 more minutes due east that way. I'm gonna shoot the shooting location of where California's very own Hill Hauser shot a particular episode that I drive by every day, and I didn't realize it till recently. And as we get a panoramic shot in view of downtown Long Beach. So this is the Old Farmers Merchants Bank building, which is still in business, and they shot 2 episodes of the TV emergency series here at the same time on that rooftop. Once upon a time, back in October 7th, 1972, it would be episode 4, season 2, or season 2, episode 4. If you guys can Google that or look it up here on YouTube. And if I find some links, I'll post them down below in my description. But thank you for joining me again on this wonderful, beautiful, sweltering hot October day, end of October. We're having a late Indian summer out here. And like always, you guys have an amazing rest of your week. But most importantly, you all have a blessed rest of your week. You all take care. Bye.